I was bleeding, broken, and running for my life at 3 in the morning. The man chasing me had trained me to fight for 3 years. Now he wanted me dead because I stole from him. The money I took? It saved my mother's life, and I would do it again. But here is where my story takes a turn no one could have predicted. Desperate and cornered, I did the unthinkable. I smashed through the window of a bar owned by the most dangerous man in Chicago, a man whose name made grown men tremble, a man who could have killed me on the spot. Instead, he asked me one question that changed everything. Who did that to your face? That night, I expected to die. I never expected to fall in love with the monster everyone warned me about. I never expected him to become my salvation. This story will show you that sometimes your darkest hour leads you to your greatest blessing, that the people others call dangerous might be the ones who protect you, and that true strength is not about never falling. It is about breaking through windows when you have nowhere else to go. If you have ever felt trapped, alone, or judged for doing what you had to do to survive, this story is for you. Stay until the end. You will not regret it. And if this story touches your heart, please like, comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another powerful story like this one. Now, let me take you back to that night when everything began. The sound of shattering glass echoed under my boots. Every piece caught the amber streetlights through the hole I had just punched in the window. I tasted my own blood as I staggered into the silent, expensive bar. This was Dante's Nightcap, a place in Chicago I had no business being. My ribs screamed with every breath I took. I was sure they were broken. But Marcus and his crew were still on the street, hunting me. This building was the only one with a light on at 3 in the morning. One of my eyes was already swelling shut. My hands were raw and split open from the fight. Blood dripped from a cut above my eye onto the perfect wood floor. You have 5 seconds. Tell me why my $15,000 Italian window is in pieces, or I will put a bullet in your head. The voice came from the shadows, smooth like whiskey but far more dangerous. I spun around, my fists ready despite the fire in my ribs. He stepped into the light, and I could not breathe. Dante Ravencraft. In Chicago, every bar employee knew that name. They whispered it with fear. He owned 37 places, from cheap dives to fancy lounges. Rumor was, he owned souls too. I had worked at 3 other bars. Every owner gave the same warning. Do not cross Dante Ravencraft. Do not owe him, and never, ever steal from him. He was taller than I imagined, maybe 6'3", with broad shoulders inside a white dress shirt. A few buttons were undone, showing a hint of a tattoo on his olive skin. More ink covered his powerful forearms. His dark eyes were like espresso, deep and hard to read. They scanned me like prey. But when they focused on my battered face, something changed. I asked you a question, he repeated. His tone was no longer lethal, it was something else. He moved with a quiet grace. I saw the gun at the small of his back and the Rolex on his wrist. Who did that to your face? He did not ask why I was there. He did not ask why I broke in. He asked who hurt me. That question hit me harder than any punch. I am sorry about the window, I said, my mouth filling with blood again. I will pay for it. I just needed a place to... The room started to spin. I reached for a booth to keep myself from falling. I needed to hide. In 3 quick steps, Dante was there, catching my arm. His grip was surprisingly gentle for a man I knew was armed and dangerous. I could smell his cologne, something rich and woody that made me want to feel safe, even though my instincts screamed at me to run. Sit, he commanded, placing me on a bar stool. Do not move. He vanished into a back room. I should have run, but my legs were trembling. The adrenaline rush was over. And where could I even go? Marcus knew every corner of the city's fighting circuit. He trained me for 3 years, and now he wanted to end me. I took his money. I skimmed it from his betting pools for 6 months. It was the only way to pay for my mother's treatment after her insurance company said no. I was paying it all back. But someone talked. Tonight, he and 3 of his men had cornered me at the gym. I fought my way out, but not before they did some serious damage. I had a split lip, a bruised eye, and a cut that would not stop bleeding. Every breath felt like my ribs were shattering. I ran 6 blocks through South Loop, Chicago with them right behind me. Dante returned holding a professional first aid kit and a bottle of expensive whiskey. He poured some into a glass and held it out to me. "Drink. It will help with the pain." I took the glass, my fingers brushing his, and downed the whiskey. It burned, but a welcome warmth spread through me, dulling the ache. Dante watched me with those piercing eyes. He then soaked a clean towel with more whiskey. "This is going to sting," he said, stepping between my knees. "But we need to clean that cut." He pressed the towel to my brow. I hissed and gripped the bar. His other hand gently held my face, his thumb stroking my cheek. "Who hurt your face?" he asked again. Each word was clear. I realized he was furious, but not at me. "Why do you care?" I asked, looking into his eyes. "You have no idea who I am. I just destroyed your property." "Your name is Sailor Thorne," he said, gently dabbing my forehead. "You are 28. You bartend, but you also fight. You have around 30 wins. And you took money from Marcus Donovan to pay for your mother's treatment." All the blood left my face. He knew everything. I was in his bar at 3 in the morning with no escape. "If you know all of that," I whispered, "you know I am a dead woman the second I walk out that door." Marcus never forgives. He says I stole $50,000 from him. Did you? I borrowed $37,460. I had tracked every single cent. That money kept my mother alive. Her cancer is gone now. So yes, I took it. And I would do it again. Dante watched my face, then carefully placed a bandage on the cut above my eye. His touch was precise. He was a man who understood violence but chose to be gentle. "Marcus Donovan is nobody," Dante said, his voice low and cold. "He runs one gym and thinks he is a king. He harms women who cannot fight him." "I can fight back," I said, knowing it was foolish. "I got away, did I not?" The briefest smile touched his lips. "Yes, you did. But you also broke into my place, shattered a window, and bled on my floor. That makes you indebted to me, Sailor Thorne." My heart hammered my bruised ribs. A debt to Marcus nearly got me killed. I could not imagine the cost of a debt to Dante. "I have nothing left." "I am not interested in money," he said, gently taking my hands to look at my split knuckles. "These need cleaning. They will scar. I have plenty of scars." "I noticed," he said, his thumb brushing over old ones. "Tell me something," he said. "Who would you rather owe, me or Marcus?" The choice hung in the air, too heavy for my exhausted mind to handle. Then I heard shouting outside. Marcus and his men were still searching. Dante heard them too. His jaw set, and his eyes became hard. In that moment, I understood why people feared his name. "Get behind the bar," he ordered. "Stay on the floor. Be silent, no matter what happens. Do you understand?" I slid off the stool and hid behind the dark wood. He walked to the shattered window with the unshakable calm of a man who had never known weakness. Through the gaps between liquor bottles, I saw his form darken the doorway, a silhouette against the city lights. "Gentlemen," his voice was a smooth, deadly thing in the quiet night. "I think you are searching for property that now belongs to me. I advise you to move on. She ran in here." That was Marcus, his voice gravelly from smoke and yelling. "We followed the blood trail. Give her to us and we will leave." "The only thing I will be giving you," Dante said, followed by the crisp, metallic click of a hammer being pulled back, "is a single warning. You have 10 seconds to get off my street before I remove you from it for good. After that, I will make some calls, and by morning, every fight club in Chicago will hear how you treat women as part of your business." There was a thick silence, then the sound of retreating feet. Marcus yelled back, "This is a mistake, Ravencraft. She's a thief." 9. Dante's count was cold and measured. 8. 7. The footsteps grew faster, then faded away completely. Dante remained in the doorway for a long moment before he finally put his weapon away and came back inside the bar. He found me still huddled behind the counter, my whole body trembling as the shock set in. "You can come out now," he said, his voice soft. "They are gone. They are not coming back." I rose on shaky legs, my hand clutching the bar to stay upright. "Why did you help me? We are strangers." "You said it yourself." Dante walked toward me. "You are in my debt." And this time, his touch on my face was different. His fingers traced my jaw, tipping my chin up until our eyes met. The gentleness was laced with possession. "Someone damaged what is mine," he said, his voice a low threat. "I do not tolerate that. Ever." "I am not yours," I whispered, but my body leaned into his presence, craving the protection he offered, knowing full well he was the most dangerous man I had ever met. "Not yet," he agreed. His thumb brushed my split lip with a devastating tenderness. "But you will be, Sailor Thorn. After I finish protecting you, after I hunt down every man who dared to touch you, you will know precisely what it means to be Dante Ravencraft's." His words were meant to be terrifying, but standing there, bleeding in his bar at 3 in the morning with his hands holding my face as if I were precious, I only felt a wave of relief. Safety, I realized, sometimes arrives in the most dangerous forms. Dante guided me to a back office, his hand resting warm on my lower back. The room was just as I would have pictured. Dark wood, leather chairs, and shelves of expensive liquor. A large desk was covered with orderly stacks of cash. He had been counting his money, I understood. That was why the light was on. "Sit." He pointed to a couch and then locked the door behind us. "I need to see your ribs." "I am fine," I said, but the words sounded like a lie even to me. Each breath was a fresh stab of pain. Dante just raised an eyebrow. He opened a cabinet and took out a medical kit that looked professional enough for a hospital. "I know the difference between fine and broken. Take your shirt up or take it off. Your call." My cheeks burned. This was already the strangest night of my life. "If you had stumbled into my bar bleeding, I would be checking your injuries," Dante said bluntly. "I do not let people die here. It is bad for my reputation." Now, the shirt. My hands shook as I pulled off my tank top, hissing as the motion jarred my side. I had a sports bra on, but I had never felt so bare as I did sitting there, in Dante Ravencraft's office, exposed and hurt, under his focused gaze. He knelt before me, his hands held just above my skin. "I am going to press on each rib. Tell me where it is sharp." His touch was warm and careful as he examined my side. I bit my lip hard to stifle a cry when his fingers found the source of the pain. "Cracked," he said. "Maybe broken." He reached for a compression wrap. "I will bind them, but you need x-rays. I have a doctor at Northwestern who is in my debt. I will have him meet us at his clinic in an hour." "I cannot pay for that," I said softly. "My money is for my mother's care." Dante stopped rapping. When he looked at me, a fierce light burned in his eyes. "Did I say anything about money?" "I said he owes me. This will cost you nothing but accepting my assistance." "Why are you doing this?" The question escaped before I could hold it back. "You could have let Marcus have me. You could have called the police on me for the window. Instead, you are bandaging my wounds and calling a private doctor. It makes no sense." Dante finished tying the bandage, his touch lingering for a second too long. "When my sister Lucia was 16, she ran from her boyfriend, a man who thought hurting women made him strong. She hid in a restaurant kitchen at 2 in the morning, bleeding and terrified. The chef found her. Instead of calling the cops, he hid her, and got my father on the phone." Dante walked to a closet, pulled out a clean shirt and offered it to me. The shirt was huge on my small body, but the fabric smelled of his cologne and was so much better than my own bloody top. My father made sure that boy was never seen again, Dante said, his tone turning hard and absolute. He showed me that some things are unforgivable. A man putting his hands on a woman is one. A man letting her suffer to protect his wallet or his name is another. You have the same spirit as Lucia. The same fight, the same desperation. You would rather shatter glass and face the fallout than let some monster shatter you. I put on the shirt, feeling lost in the soft material. What became of your sister? She manages my finances now. She married a man who works on Wall Street. They have 3 children, and her accounting skills can bring powerful men to their knees. A true smile reached his eyes, changing his expression from intimidating to breathtaking. She is secure now because somebody stepped in when she was most vulnerable. And now, I am stepping in for you. I thought I owed you a debt, I said, my voice muffled as I tugged my wet hair from the collar of his shirt. Things are never free, especially from a man like you. A man like me? Dante crossed the room to his desk and leaned back against it, folding his arms. The dim office lighting carved him into the very image of the crime boss from the rumors. Dominant, threatening, and in absolute command. Tell me what you think you understand about men like me, sailor. I understand you control most of the nightlife in Chicago. I understand that people are afraid of you. And I understand you have the kind of power that could make a person like me vanish completely. I held his gaze, ignoring the fear in my gut. And I know powerful men always want payment. Clever girl. He pushed away from the desk and approached with a smooth, predatory walk. Yes, I want something. I want every single detail of Marcus Donovan's business. I want to know every fighter he uses, every illegal ring he profits from, and every dirty official he has paid. I want the name of every person in that locker room tonight, every man who touched you, and every man who chased you through my neighborhood. His eyes were like hot coals. And then, I want you to witness me as I dismantle everything he has. His gyms, his money, his name, his pride. I will make certain Marcus Donovan never forgets the night he made the mistake of touching my property. I am not your property, I said, but the words were faint. Not yet, he repeated, his hand rising to cup my cheek. But you broke my window, Sailor Thorne. You chose my bar, my shelter. You might not have known it, but you entered my world, and I protect what is mine. I should have backed away. Everything about Dante was a warning. His expensive suit, his casual violence, the possessive way he touched me. But I had spent 3 years in underground fights, 3 years of men betting on my survival, 3 years with men like Marcus, who saw me as an investment. Dante saw me as something to defend, something to avenge. Tell me about Marcus, he said, his voice now almost gentle. Begin at the start. So I told him. I explained how I started fighting at 25, desperate for money to pay for my mother's illness. How Marcus saw me winning fights and offered to train me. He was professional at first, until I started winning big and the money flowed. He took 60% of my earnings, claiming it was standard, and I was too desperate to question it. I told Dante how I found the fake records 6 months ago and realized he was stealing from all of his fighters. I explained how I skimmed money from the betting pools, siphoning cash to fund my mother's experimental treatments. Pulling out my phone, I showed him the detailed spreadsheet I kept. Every dollar I took, every hospital payment, every single fight I had adjusted the numbers for. I told him I planned to return it all after my mother went into remission, when I could win bigger purses. Dante examined the file with the eyes of a man who understood money. You have transaction dates, ring locations, even the bookies' names. Marcus is careless. He never suspected you were documenting his own crimes. I'm a bartender, I said, a shrug sending fire through my ribs. We notice things. Besides, if he ever found me out, I needed evidence I was only taking what he had already stolen. You were smart. Dante scrolled through the entries, his face growing harder with each line. Marcus has been running this con at 3 different gyms, cheating fighters who trusted him. This is enough to get him blacklisted from every underground fight in the Midwest. He met my gaze, a flicker of what looked like respect in his eyes. He underestimated you. You're brave too. Most people would have disappeared the second they knew Marcus was a cheat. Most people don't have a mother dying from cancer, I answered softly. I would do anything to save her, even if it meant robbing a thief. Dante put my phone down and leaned in, his hands landing on the couch on either side of me, trapping me without a single touch. This is what is going to happen. You will stay here on my couch tonight. In the morning, you will see a doctor I know. He will look at your ribs, ensure there is no serious damage, and give you something for the pain. And after that? I asked. I was intensely aware of his closeness. The way his body heat felt like a shield around me. Then you will move into the apartment over the bar. It is empty, furnished, and much safer than your current place. You will work for me. You will tend bar by day, and you will help me navigate the fighting circuit by night. I cannot just live with you, I protested. People will gossip. They will think I am your what? Your mistress, your employee, your project. Dante's smile was a sharp, dangerous thing. Let them think what they want. What matters is that Marcus and his crew will never lay a hand on you again. Everyone in Chicago will know you are under my protection. And what is in this for you? I asked, fighting the strange flutter in my chest when he looked at me. Dante's hand rose, his fingers weaving into my hair and tilting my head back, forcing me to meet his stare. I get to see you heal. I get to train you the right way, to teach you how to fight without getting killed. I get all the information on Marcus's operation, and I get the deep satisfaction of ruining a man who harms women in my city. His thumb grazed my bottom lip, a touch I felt through my entire body. And in time, when you are ready, when you finally understand that I am not like the men who have hurt you, I get all of you. No more hiding, no more fighting by yourself, no more choosing between your own safety and your mother's life. You will be mine, sailor, and I will make this whole city understand what I do to people who touch what belongs to me. That is crazy, I whispered. You have no idea who I am. I know what matters. I know you break windows before you break a promise. I know you fight 3 grown men rather than back down. I know you love your mother enough to risk it all. That is enough. He leaned closer, and for a terrifying second, I thought he would kiss me. But his lips only brushed my forehead in a gesture that was both tender and possessive. Get some sleep, he whispered against my skin. Tomorrow, we begin to dismantle Marcus Donovan's entire world. And sailor, those men who hurt you tonight, they will regret ever being born, I promise you. He pulled away, and the sudden cold was a shock. He crossed to his desk, took a blanket from a closet, and laid it over me with unexpected gentleness. Sleep. I will be right here all night. You are safe. I had no reason to believe him. I should not have trusted a mafia boss I had known for less than 2 hours. But curled on his couch, in his shirt and under his blanket, listening to him work, I felt safer than I had in 3 years. Dante Ravencroft was a dangerous man. He was controlling and possessive, the exact type I should flee from. But he saw my battered face and asked who did it. He taped my ribs with careful hands and offered me safety without conditions I could not meet. For the first time since my mom got sick, I was not fighting alone. That was worth any price Dante might ask for later. I drifted off to the sound of him counting bills and making calls, his voice a low rumble promising violence to anyone who threatened his property. I would worry about my choices tomorrow. Tonight, I just rested. 3 days later, I was in the apartment above Dante's bar, looking at a place that was now mine. The doctor found 2 cracked ribs but no other damage. He wrapped them correctly and gave me powerful painkillers that actually helped. Dante had sent movers to my small studio in Pilsen. They packed my few belongings into 6 boxes and delivered them before I could object. The apartment was incredible. It had exposed brick walls and massive windows that looked out over the South Loop. The kitchen had appliances from magazines, and the bedroom was bigger than my old place. This felt like a different life, one without scraping for pennies and fighting in basements for food money. The locks are biometric, Dante said, showing me the security panel. Your fingerprint and a code only we know. The windows are bulletproof, and every room has a panic button that calls my phone. Bulletproof windows, I said, trying to absorb the sheer level of protection. That was a lot of security for a bartender. Dante turned toward me. Light from the bulletproof windows revealed him clearly. I saw the sharp angle of his jaw and a faint scar over his left eye. His dress shirt stretched tight across his shoulders. He had rolled up the sleeves, showing tattoos on his forearms. I saw Italian words I could not read, tangled with ravens and roses. You are not just a bartender anymore, sailor. You are a target for Marcus Donovan, and that means you need security. You also work for me, so your safety affects my reputation. He stepped closer, and I smelled that woody cologne again. Besides, I like to keep my investments safe. Is that all I am to you, an investment? You are whatever you need to be to let me help you. His hand moved, his fingers tracing a path down my arm. I tried to suppress the shiver that followed his touch. Fighter, bartender, investment, mine. The final word was so possessive, but it did not scare me. I found myself leaning toward him, pulled in by a force I did not understand. Dante, I began, but he just shook his head. I have a meeting in 1 hour. Get settled in. Take your medicine and rest your ribs. Your real training starts tomorrow night. What real training? His smile was sharp, full of danger. If you work for me, you must know how to truly fight. This is not about street brawls or underground rings. I will teach you how to survive in my world. He was gone before I could ask more. I spent the day unpacking my life into this new space, trying to ignore what surviving in his world meant. The next evening, Dante took me to a private gym in the basement of his building. It was 3 times the size of any place I had ever trained, with professional gear, clean floors, and bright lights. There were no stained mats or broken machines here. Show me what Marcus taught you, Dante said. He leaned against a wall with his arms crossed, dressed in black athletic clothes that highlighted every muscle. He looked like the predator I knew he was. I walked to the heavy bag and began my combinations: a jab, a cross, a hook, an uppercut. My body moved from memory, the motions smooth even with my injured ribs. I had spent 3 years honing these skills, learning to hit hard and fast to stay on my feet. Dante watched me in silence for 10 minutes, then pushed himself off the wall. Stop. I stopped, breathing heavily. What is it? Everything. He stepped into the ring and circled me like I was his prey. Your stance is too wide, making you an easy target for a leg sweep. You drop your guard after your third punch. You signal your right hook by lowering your shoulder. And you are protecting your injured side so obviously that any decent fighter would know exactly where to strike to put you down. My face burned with humiliation. I have won 30 fights with that style against other amateurs for purses of $3,000. Dante shifted behind me, placing his hands on my hips to correct my form. You are learning to fight professionals, people who fight to survive, not to entertain. A current shot threw me at his touch, even with my clothes as a barrier. I fought to concentrate on his words instead of the warmth of his body against mine. Bring your feet in, he whispered, his breath hot next to my ear. Power originates from your center, not a wide stance. You are a woman facing men double your weight. Strength will not save you. You must rely on speed, precision, and the element of surprise. He repositioned my arms, lifting my guard. Higher. Always shield your face. Marcus taught you how to brawl. I am teaching you how to survive. For 2 hours we worked on fundamentals, on stance, footwork, and defensive posture. Dante gave no ground, pointing out every error and forcing me to move faster, ignoring the pain from my ribs. When he finally stopped, I was soaked in sweat. The medicine had faded, and a fire burned in my left side. That is enough, Dante declared, throwing a towel at me. You are favoring that injury. We can resume when it has mended. I am fine, I insisted, though simply standing was an agony. Dante arched a brow, then his hand shot out with blinding speed, aiming for my injured side. I recoiled hard, and he caught me before I hit the floor, his arms securing my waist. You are not fine, he said softly, with a tone that was almost gentle. Pushing yourself before you are ready will only make it worse. I need you whole, sailor, not broken. You almost sound like you care, I said, intending it as a joke. The words came out sounding weak and vulnerable. Dante's hold on me tightened, and he lowered his head until our foreheads were almost touching. I already told you I do not let others harm what is mine. That rule includes you harming yourself. His phone vibrated before I could think of a reply. He let go of me with clear hesitation and glanced at the screen, a shadow crossing his face. A problem? I asked. Marcus is holding a fight at Sal's gym tonight. High stakes, a large crowd. Dante's gaze met mine, a calculating look in his eyes. How do you feel about making a public appearance? My stomach plunged. You want me to return there after everything that happened? I want Marcus to see you. I want him to know you are alive, well, and now have my protection. I want every single person in that gym to know that if they touch you, they will have to deal with me. He drew nearer, cupping my cheek with a gentleness that disarmed me. But only if you are ready. I will never force you into a situation you cannot manage. The old sailor would have agreed without a second thought. She would have seized the opportunity to show she was not afraid. But 3 days in Dante's world had taught me a valuable lesson. True strength is knowing your own weaknesses. My ribs are not healed, I said with honesty. If trouble starts, I cannot properly defend myself. You will not have to lift a finger. That is my role now. His thumb gently stroked my cheekbone, and I instinctively leaned into his touch. Your only job is to stand next to me and look beautiful. I will take care of the rest. I am not the beautiful type, I argued. I am the functional and practical type. Dante's smile was deliberate and devastating. Believe me, sailor, you manage beautiful perfectly well. 2 hours later, I stared at the woman in the mirror, barely recognizing her. Dante had brought in a stylist, an unnervingly skilled woman named Rosa, who remade me from a street fighter into something else. She put me in sleek black pants, heeled boots that gave me 3 extra inches of height, and a silk top in a deep green that made my eyes seem brighter, despite my bruises. My hair was styled loosely, and subtle makeup hid the worst of the damage. You look perfect, Rosa announced. Like you could destroy a man and not even smudge your lipstick. Is that the idea? I asked, my voice thin. Honey, when you enter that gym on the arm of Dante Ravencraftoft, everyone needs to know you are off limits. This look says you are dangerous, shielded, and not to be trifled with. Dante was in the living room when I walked out, and the expression on his face made the air leave my lungs. He had changed into a charcoal suit and a black shirt without a tie. He was the perfect image of a beautiful and dangerous predator, but his eyes on me held something different. It was a mix of possessive pride and a deeper, more primal hunger. Sailor, he said, and my name sounded like a raw caress. You will make every man in that gym regret they ever laid a hand on you. He held out his arm. I took it, trying to ignore how natural it felt to be connected to him. We drove to Pilsen in his black Mercedes, city lights blurring past the window, as I tried to push away memories of my last visit to Sal's gym. When we got there, the underground space was crowded. The air was heavy with the smell of sweat, aggression, and the coppery scent of blood. In the ring, two heavyweights were beating each other as the audience roared, waving their betting slips. The instant we walked in, a wave of silence washed over the room. All eyes snapped to us, to Dante in his fine suit and me on his arm, undeniably alive and very clearly under his protection. I saw Marcus right away. He was standing by the ring, and the blood drained from his face when he saw me. His three cronies, the ones from the locker room, tensed up, their hands inching toward hidden weapons. Dante's hand rested on the small of my back, a warm and steady presence as he led me into the throng. The crowd parted for us like the sea, nobody daring to stand in Dante Ravencraftoff's path. We came to a stop right in front of Marcus. I could see the terror in his eyes and smell his nervous sweat, even in the cool air of the gym. "Marcus," Dante said, his voice cutting easily through the noise of the fight. "I think you know my associate." Marcus's gaze flickered between us. "She took money from me. She took back money that you had already taken from others." Dante's voice was calm, almost pleasant, but it had an edge of pure steel. "I have seen her records, and they are quite detailed. I imagine the boxing commission would be very interested in them." Marcus's face turned from white to blotchy red. "You cannot come into my gym and threaten me. This is not a threat." Dante smiled, and it held no warmth, only danger. "It is a piece of information. From this moment on, every underground ring in Chicago will know that Sailor Thorne is with me. If she even breaks a nail, I will hold you personally accountable. And Marcus, I do not make people vanish in rivers. I make them pray for something that quick." He faced the crowd, his voice rising. "Does anyone here have an issue with Miss Thorne? Does anyone want to claim the bounty Marcus put on her? This is your chance to say so." The silence was absolute and filled with fear. "Good." Dante's hand wrapped around my waist, pulling me tight against him in a move that was both a shield and a claim. "I am glad we are all on the same page. And Marcus, this is your formal warning. You have 60 days to shut down every gym you have in Chicago. After that, your licenses, your permits, and all your secret deals become my problem to eliminate for good." We started to walk away, but Marcus's voice caught us. "You cannot do this to me. I have friends. I have connections." Dante turned around slowly, his expression making me shiver. "Everything you have, I can strip away. Never forget that." We walked out of Sal's gym, his hand holding mine, as the crowd silently cleared our path. I did not look back. I did not need to see Marcus's face to know we had won. In the car, my hands trembled from a mix of adrenaline, fear, and sheer relief. "Are you all right?" Dante asked, covering my hand with his. "You just vowed to tear down a man's entire world for me," I said, my voice low. "I am not accustomed to that kind of protection. You will be." He lifted my hand to his mouth, kissing my bruised knuckles. "You are mine now, Sailor. That makes your enemies my enemies. Your battles are my battles. And anyone who believes they can hurt you will find out what that truly means." His words should have terrified me, should have sent me running. But as we moved through the Chicago night with his hand in mine, the only thing I felt was safe. 2 weeks after our visit to Sal's gym, I was covering the afternoon shift at Dante's nightclub when the door opened. A woman I had never seen entered. She was stunning. In her early 30s, wearing designer clothes with a purse that cost more than my old 3-month salary, and she had the same dark eyes as Dante. "You must be Sailor," she said, sliding onto a bar stool with effortless grace. "I am Lucia, Dante's sister." My hands stopped their motion of polishing a glass. This was the sister he had spoken of, the one who fled her abusive boyfriend by breaking into a restaurant kitchen. The woman whose trauma had influenced Dante's reaction to finding me injured in his bar. "He has mentioned you," I replied, placing the glass down and extending my hand. "It is a pleasure to finally meet you." Lucia's grip was strong, all business. "My brother has been quite preoccupied recently. I came to meet the woman causing the distraction. She requested a gin and tonic, and I prepared it just as I would for any patron, trying to keep my hand steady." Lucia Ravencraftoff was not just his sister. She was his sister, Lucia, his accountant and advisor, and one of the few people he truly listened to. After a sip of her drink, she said, "He helped you. Someone did the same for me a long time ago. That is why he brought you here and gave you his protection." "I know," I said. leaning on the bar to meet her eyes. He told me your story. He said your experience taught him to never ignore a woman in need of help. Did he mention what happened to the man who attacked me? I shook my head, and Lucia's smile was like a blade. My father had him beaten so badly, he was in the hospital for 6 months. When he got out, they made him leave Chicago for good. Our family does not forgive men who harm women. She ran a finger along the rim of her glass. But Dante is not our father. He is much worse, more controlled, more methodical. He is infinitely more dangerous when someone crosses one of his lines. So I need to ask you, Sailor Thorne, do you have any idea what you are involved in? Do you know what it means to have my brother's protection? I am learning, I told her honestly. Every day I learn more about his world. And what have you learned so far? I thought about the last 2 weeks. The training sessions where Dante taught me how to fight, his hands staying on my waist a little too long. The quiet dinners in his apartment where we avoided the tension growing between us. I thought about how he looked at me, as if I were both precious and dangerous. I have learned your brother is not like Marcus or the other men who tried to own me. He is possessive, and his protection can feel overwhelming. But he has never made me feel like I am less than him. He sees a fighter, not just a victim. Lucia watched me for a long moment, then she smiled. A good answer. If you had answered differently, I would have warned you to stay away from him. But the right answer means I can tell you the truth about Dante Ravencroft. She leaned closer, her voice low. My brother has never brought a woman into his world before. He has had girlfriends, but they were kept separate from his business and his real life. You are the first one he has brought into his apartment, his bar, his entire operation. You are the first woman he has trained himself, protected in public, and claimed in front of his people. What are you trying to say? I am saying my brother is falling for you, and it is happening faster than it ever has before. When Dante Ravencroft falls, he falls all the way. You will never be free of him, Sailor. He will be demanding and possessive, and he will expect a loyalty that feels like an obsession. But he will give you that same loyalty in return. You will never be alone or unsafe again. My heart pounded against my ribs. That is a lot to handle. Yes, it is. That is why I am here. To make sure you know what you are agreeing to. Because once you belong to him, there is no turning back. Dante does not do casual relationships. He does not do temporary. When he claims something, it is his forever. The bar door swung open and Dante walked in, freezing when he saw us. Lucia, I did not know you were coming by. I wanted to meet your new bartender, she said sweetly, finishing her drink. She makes a great gin and tonic. You should pay her more. Lucia stood up and kissed her brother's cheek, then faced me. It was wonderful to meet you, Sailor. I am sure I will see you again. Maybe at Sunday dinner. Dante never misses it. She was gone before I could say anything. Dante came to the bar, his eyes studying my face. What did she say to you? She wanted to be sure I understood what I was getting into. I held his gaze. She said you do not do casual or temporary. That when you claim something, you keep it forever. She is not wrong. Dante's fingers reached across the bar and tangled with mine. I told you on the first night. You are mine, Sailor. That feeling has only gotten stronger every day. Dante, I began, but he just shook his head. I know this is moving fast. I know you are still healing and learning to trust me, but I need you to know something. He came around the bar, trapping me against the shelves of liquor. I have spent 15 years building this life. I own places all over Chicago and command respect from men twice my age, but nothing could have prepared me for finding you bleeding on my floor. His hands framed my face, his touch filled with a powerful restraint. You entered my world at 3 in the morning. You were bleeding and defiant, and so brave I could not turn away. Every day since you have proven you are the kind of woman I never knew I was missing. I am just a fighter who got in too deep, I whispered. No. His thumb gently traced my lip. You are a woman who would steal to save her mother. A woman who would fight 3 trained men instead of backing down. Who would break my window and face my weapon rather than let someone else break her? That is more than just a fighter, sailor. That is extraordinary. He leaned forward, his forehead touching mine. I could feel his breath on my lips. Please tell me you feel this. Tell me I am not the only one. I should have moved. I should have kept my distance. I should have remembered that men like Dante Ravencroft were a threat to women like me. But I was so tired of running and fighting by myself. I was tired of denying the connection between us. You are not alone, I admitted. My hands came up to his chest, where I could feel his heart beating fast and strong. I do not know what this is, but you are not alone in it. Dante's control finally broke. His mouth crashed down on mine, possessive and perfect. I kissed him back with the same fire, pouring months of fear and loneliness into that connection. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer. I pressed my body against his, needing more. When we pulled apart for air, Dante rested his forehead on mine again. Mine, he breathed. It was not a question. Yours, I confirmed, and something inside me finally settled. The sound of the door opening broke the spell. Dante stepped back, his professional mask returning, but his hand stayed on my waist, a silent claim. One of his men, a guy named Anthony who ran security, walked in. He saw us and kept his face blank. Boss, we have a problem at the warehouse. Marcus is talking about a lawsuit and has a lawyer from downtown. Dante's face turned to ice. Marcus can hire anyone he wants. I have proof of every illegal fight, every stolen dollar, and every bribe he has made for the past 5 years. If he wants a legal fight, he will get one. Dante turned back to me, his hand on my cheek. I have to go deal with this. Stay here. Finish your work and do not leave the building without security. Do you understand? Understood. I grabbed his hand before he left. Be careful. A hint of softness returned to his eyes. Always. I have a reason to come back now. He left with Anthony, and I spent the rest of the night thinking about that kiss. That night, in my bed upstairs, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Dante. Can't sleep, thinking of you. I stared at the screen before I typed back. Same. His response came instantly. Come downstairs. I want to show you something. I put on sweatpants and a shirt and walked down the private stairs to his office. The bar was dark and quiet. He was waiting with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. I thought you were handling business at the warehouse, I said as he handed me a glass. It is handled. Marcus's lawyer saw my evidence and told him to drop the case. Dante led me to a leather booth and sat close beside me. Which means we need to discuss what comes next. What comes next? Marcus is trapped. His business is failing, his fighters are leaving, and his name is ruined. Trapped animals are unpredictable, sailor. He will do something desperate. I need to be sure you are safe. I have security. I have the apartment. I have you. I took a sip of wine. What other protection could I need? Dante's hand rested on my thigh, his warmth seeping through the fabric. I want you to stop working behind the bar for now. Stay in the apartment. We can train at night. Let me deal with the public side of things until Marcus is no longer a threat. You want me to hide? I said, my voice flat. I want you to be safe. His hand tightened on my leg. This was different. I put my wineglass down and faced him directly. I survived 3 years in underground fights with men twice my size. I walked away from Marcus's ambush with broken ribs. I am not a fragile thing, Dante, and I will not hide in your apartment like some damsel waiting for a hero. I never said you were fragile. His other hand rose to cup my face. But you are mine to protect, and that is a responsibility I take seriously. If anything happened to you because I failed to keep you safe, nothing is going to happen, I interrupted. You made sure everyone in Chicago knows I am under your protection. Marcus would have to be suicidal to make a move now. That is precisely what worries me. Marcus has nothing left to lose. I looked at his face in the bar's dim lighting, and I saw the real fear hidden beneath his controlled surface. This is more than just protection, is it not? This is about control. You have to know where I am and what I am doing every single moment. Yes, Dante confessed, his thumb tracing my cheek. I need that. Is it irrational? Probably. Is it excessive? Most definitely. But I cannot stop it, sailor. You are constantly in my thoughts. The idea of you being hurt again? His voice became rough. I cannot let that happen. I leaned into his hand, feeling the force of his need and seeing it for what it was. It was not dominance. It was desperation. What if we make a deal? I will keep working at the bar during the afternoon shifts when you are here. At night, I will stay in the apartment or train with you. I will check in. I will not go anywhere by myself. And I will let your security team follow me. Dante's eyes searched my own. You would do that? Surrender that much of your freedom? It is not surrendering freedom. It is accepting that someone finally cares if I live or die. I took his hand and held it against my cheek. And you are not the only one who is afraid. Marcus has nothing to lose, and I know that makes him dangerous. I do not want to be careless about my own safety. You could never be careless, Dante whispered. Then he was kissing me again, with less force this time, but with the same intensity. His hands moved to my waist, lifting me until I was on his lap, and I wrapped my arms around his neck, getting lost in him. When we finally separated, both of us breathing heavily, Dante's eyes were dark with desire and something more. Stay with me tonight. Not in the apartment. Here. With me. I understood what he was asking. I knew what it meant to cross that boundary. Dante, just for sleep, he said quickly. But his hands on my waist told a different story. I want to hold you. I want to wake up and know that you are safe. That is all. Unless you want something more. I should have said no. I should have kept some distance between us. But the truth was, I wanted this as much as he did. I wanted to sleep in his arms. I wanted to wake up beside him. I wanted to stop fighting the connection that had been growing since I broke his window. Okay, I whispered, just to sleep. Dante's smile was slow and lethal as he stood up, lifting me with him. Liar, he murmured against my lips. But I will take what I can get. He carried me up a private staircase to his own apartment, which was larger and more luxurious than mine. He laid me on his enormous bed with incredible gentleness. Then he stripped down to his boxer briefs and got in beside me, pulling me tight against his chest. This is just sleeping, I protested, but my voice was weak. I was very aware of the heat from his skin. Of course, Dante agreed, his hand sliding under my shirt to rest on my bare waist. Just sleeping with my hand on your skin, in my bed, right where you belong. I laughed and curled into him, feeling safer than I had in years. You are impossible. I am yours, he corrected, kissing the top of my head. Get some sleep, sailor. Tomorrow, we will finish what Marcus began. I fell asleep in the arms of Dante Ravencroft, listening to his heart. For the first time since my mother got sick, I felt like everything might actually be okay. I woke up to bright sunlight and Dante's arm heavy on my waist. During the night, I had turned to face him, my head resting on his bare chest, one leg tangled with his. He was still asleep. His sharp features were relaxed, and dark hair fell across his forehead, making him look younger and less dangerous. I took the chance to study him. The strong line of his jaw, the scar over his eyebrow I had seen before, the complex tattoos that covered his arms and chest. Up close, I could finally read the Italian words. La familia è tutto. Family is everything. You are staring, Dante said, his voice rough with sleep, his eyes still closed. You are worth staring at, I confessed, and my face grew warm. His eyes opened, dark and intense, and his hand tightened on my waist. Stay right here. Let me have this moment before the world gets complicated again. So I stayed. He held me, and I felt his heartbeat under my hand. I tried not to think about how right it felt, or how easy it would be to fall for this man who had shown me more kindness in 3 weeks than I had known in years. "My mother wants to meet you," I said quietly. "She called yesterday. I told her I moved and she wants to see the new place. And you." Dante's hand moved to the back of my head, his fingers weaving through my hair. "What did you tell her about me? That you are my boss? That you helped me when I was in trouble? That you are—" I stopped, not sure how to describe what Dante was to me. "That I am yours," he finished for me. "Tell her the truth, sailor. Tell her you are with the most dangerous man in Chicago, and he would burn this city to the ground before he let anyone hurt you again. That might scare her. Good. She should be scared for you. The world I am bringing you into is not safe. It is violent and unforgiving. But I promise you this. As long as you are mine, you will never have to face it by yourself." His phone buzzed on the table, shattering the peace. Dante grabbed it, his face growing dark as he read the screen. "What is it?" I asked, sitting up. Marcus made a move. "3 of my businesses were vandalized last night. Windows were broken, merchandise was destroyed, and threats were left behind." Dante was already getting dressed with quick, efficient movements. "He is trying to force a fight. What are you going to do?" Dante turned to me, and the gentle man who held me was gone. In his place was the Mafia boss that Chicago feared. Cold, calculating, and deadly. I am going to give him exactly what he wants. A fight, but on my terms, in my territory, with my rules. He walked back to the bed and cupped my face with both hands. "You are staying here today. Security will be outside your door. No exceptions. This ends tonight, sailor. One way or another. Let me come with you," I said, grabbing his wrists. "I can help. I know how Marcus thinks." "No." The word was final. "You are not going anywhere near him. I will not risk you. This started because of me. I stole from him. I needed that money for my mother. I should be there when it is over." Dante's jaw was tight. "This stopped being about you the moment Marcus hunted you in my streets. This is between him and me now. It is about respect and territory. It is about showing what happens when you touch what is mine. You do not need to be there for that." He kissed me, hard and possessive. Then he pulled away. "Stay here. I mean it, sailor. Do not leave this apartment." He left before I could argue. The door shut behind him, with a terrible sound. I paced the apartment all morning. I trained in the gym, trying to burn away the anxious energy. Dante had left 2 guards outside my door. They were silent, professional men who I knew were armed. Around noon, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something made me press the button. Sailor Thorne. A woman's voice, professional and unfamiliar, replied. "This is Dr. Chen from Northwestern Memorial. I am calling about your mother." My heart froze. "What is wrong? Is she all right?" "She is stable, but she is asking to see you. There has been a complication with her treatment, and she is very agitated. She specifically asked for you to come to the hospital. I will be there in 20 minutes, I said, already grabbing my jacket. I got past Dante's security with a lie. I told them I was just going down to the bar to check on something. Then I slipped out a back door and got a cab to the hospital. It was a familiar place. I had spent many months there with my mother. I knew the hallways like my own home. I found her room on the oncology floor, opened the door, and walked straight into Marcus's trap. He was there with 2 of his men. My mother was not. The room was empty except for them. I realized with a sickening feeling that Dr. Chen had never called. "I thought you were smarter than this," Marcus said as he blocked the door. "But everyone has a weakness. Your mother is yours." I backed away, my mind racing. I scanned the small room for a way out. It was 2 against 1 and my ribs were barely healed. There was no fighting my way clear of this. I tried to sound brave, but fear was a poison in my veins. Dante will kill you, I said. You know that, do not you? The second he learns you laid a hand on me, you are a dead man. He smirked. Maybe. But first, you will pay for wrecking my business. Then I will use you to make Ravencraftoft give me what I want. He wants you? He can have you when I am finished. Marcus started walking toward me. I did the only thing I could. I pressed the panic button on my watch, the one Dante gave me. It sent a signal straight to his phone and his entire security team. Then I started to fight. My first punch landed on Marcus's throat. It bought me a few seconds. His partner lunged from my left. I used his own weight to throw him into the medical cart. But the other man was bigger. He was faster. He wrapped his arms around my waist and lifted me from the floor. A fresh wave of pain shot through my ribs as he threw me against the wall. I smashed my elbow back into his face. I felt his nose break, but his grip stayed firm. Marcus was getting to his feet, his face twisted with rage. I knew I was out of time. The door did not open. It exploded. Dante stormed in like a hurricane, his security team right behind him. His eyes locked on me, understanding everything in a single glance. The look on his face was the most frightening thing I had ever witnessed. Let her go. Every word was tight with controlled fury. The man holding me hesitated. That single moment was all Dante needed. He moved with deadly speed, pulling me from the man's grasp and placing me safely behind him. It was a single fluid motion. Then his fist connected with the man's face. The force sent him flying backward through the room's glass observation window. The next few moments were fast and brutal. Dante's team handled the other man, while Dante dealt with Marcus himself. He did not use a weapon. He did not have to. His fists were instruments of perfect, painful punishment. Each strike was meant to hurt, not to kill. You, Dante growled between blows, touched what belongs to me. I could see it in his eyes. He was going to kill him. The cold precision in his attack was terrifying. He showed no mercy. Marcus was barely awake with blood pouring from his mouth. But Dante was not stopping. Dante! I grabbed his arm and pulled him away. Stop. He is not worth it. Dante turned, and for a terrifying second, I was not sure he saw me. Then his eyes cleared. The murderous rage disappeared. Did he hurt you? His hands were on me instantly, his touch surprisingly gentle as he checked for injuries. Sailor, did he touch you? I am okay. My ribs hurt, but I will live. I put my hands on his face, making him look at me instead of the broken man on the floor. I am okay because you got here. You saved me. Dante pulled me into his arms, holding me with a desperate tightness. You promised you would stay in the apartment. You promised. He called me. He pretended he was a doctor. He said my mother was in trouble. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Never be sorry for loving your mother. Dante kissed the top of my head. His arms tightened again. But God, sailor, when I received your signal, when I saw where you were, I have never been so scared in my whole life. Boss, one of his men stepped forward. The police are almost here. We should go. Dante nodded, but did not let me go. Anthony, take Marcus and his men to the warehouse. Teach them what happens when someone touches my woman. Then get them out of Chicago tonight. I do not care where they end up, just as long as it is far from here. What about the hospital? I asked in a small voice. Marcus needs a doctor. He will get one after he signs over every property, every dollar, and every contact he has to me. Then we patch him up and put him on a bus. Dante's voice was like ice. He is lucky to be alive. We left through a back door, avoiding the police. Inside Dante's car, the shaking started. The adrenaline was gone. Dante pulled me close, holding me with one arm as I started to fall apart. I could have gotten you killed, I whispered, if you were even 1 minute later. But I was not. You fought him, you bought time, and you trusted me to come. That is all that matters. Back at his apartment, Dante stayed by my side. He checked my ribs, wrapped them again, and gave me something for the pain. Then he just held me on the sofa. "It is over," he whispered into my hair. "Marcus is gone. His entire operation is mine. Everyone in the underground knows you are protected. You are safe now, sailor. You can finally stop running." "What if I do not know how?" I asked. "What if running and fighting is all I know how to do?" "Then I will teach you," he said. "Every single day, I will show you what it feels like to be safe, to be treasured, to be mine. And one day, you will believe it. I am falling for you." The words came out before I could stop them. "I know it is happening fast and it is probably crazy, but I am falling for you, Dante. And it scares me." A slow, devastating smile spread across his face. "Good. Because I fell for you the moment you smashed my window. You were bleeding and defiant and so beautiful it hurt to look at you. I have just been waiting for you to feel it too." He kissed me then. It was soft and sweet and perfect. I kissed him back, putting weeks of fear and hope into that one connection. "I love you," Dante whispered. "I know this is too soon and too much, but I love you, Sailor Thorn, and I will spend the rest of my life proving it to you." I should have been afraid of those words. I should have pulled away. Instead, I leaned in closer, letting him hold me. I whispered back, "I love you too." That night was different. We made love slowly, carefully. Dante was mindful of my injuries, his hands gentle on my skin. Afterward, as I lay in his arms, I finally understood what Lucia had told me. Dante Ravencraftoft was not a casual man. He did not do things halfway. When he loved with everything he had, forever. And I was ready for it. 6 months later, I stood inside what used to be Sal's gym in Pilsen. Contractors were turning the old space into something new. Dante was beside me, his hand warm and steady on my back. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. It was the third time that morning. "I am sure." I leaned against him and looked at the plans on the table. The Diamond Women's Boxing Academy. It would be a place for women to train, to learn to defend themselves, a place where no one like Marcus could ever exploit them again. Dante's arm wrapped around my waist. I could feel his pride. After Marcus signed away his entire life and left Chicago, we had spent months taking over his operations. We shut down most of the illegal fights. The gyms were sold or repurposed. This space, where I had fought to survive for 3 years, was becoming a place that would help women. "Your mother would be so proud," Dante said quietly. I smiled. My mother met Dante about a week after the hospital. She was terrified of him, at first. He was the kind of dangerous man she had always warned me about. But then she saw the way he looked at me. She saw how gentle he could be, and she understood. "He is keeping you safe," she told me later. "That is all I have ever wanted." Her cancer was now gone. Her medical bills were paid, which meant Dante had paid them. She had a new apartment, also thanks to Dante, and she volunteered at the hospital that had treated her. "Have you found instructors yet?" Dante asked, looking at the plans. "I want to teach the new students myself. I am also hiring some of the women I used to fight with, the ones who got out and made new lives. They deserve a chance to teach the next generation how to be strong." "And the security systems?" I rolled my eyes at him. "They are completely over the top, as usual, but yes, I approved all of it. Guards for the night classes, cameras everywhere, and panic buttons in every single room. You will always know that I am safe here." Dante turned me to face him, his hands on my hips. In the 6 months since Marcus was gone, we had built a life. I worked at his bar during the day and trained women in the afternoon. Our evenings were for us. We lived in his apartment, but he kept mine as an office for me to run the academy. "I cannot help it," he said, and brushed a stray piece of hair from my cheek. "Keeping you safety has become second nature to me. And you did promise me something." I placed a hand on my stomach. It was still flat, but not for long. I remember. We learned I was pregnant 2 weeks ago. I was 12 weeks along, but we had not told anyone. The news pushed Dante into a new state of protectiveness. It would have been too much if it was not clearly coming from love. Twins, he whispered, putting his hand over mine on my stomach. 2 babies. My doctor says it is common for families with your genes. Your doctor also says I am perfectly healthy. I can continue my normal life with a few changes. I stood on my toes to kiss him. That means you can stop treating me like I am made of glass. I cannot promise that, he said, but he kissed me back, soft and gentle. I felt him smile against my lips. You are carrying my children, sailor. I am allowed to be protective. You are always protective. That is true, but now I have a very good reason. Lucia came to the doorway holding coffee. She looked like the powerful businesswoman she was. Are you two finished being so cute? We have to discuss contracts in 20 minutes. We are never finished being cute, Dante answered. But he let me go and walked to the table where Lucia was laying out documents. I watched them, brother and sister, talk business with the same sharp minds. I could not believe how my life had changed. 6 months ago, I was bleeding in the street, breaking windows just to survive. Now, I was about to open my own academy, pregnant with twins and in love with a man who had risked everything to keep me safe. Sailor, Lucia said, I need you to sign the insurance papers. I went to the table and read the documents before signing. The academy was insured against everything: fire, theft, injuries, and even natural disasters. Dante had thought of it all. Have you considered any names? Lucia asked, but her eyes showed deep curiosity. I looked at Dante, and he shrugged. We were not going to tell anyone yet. Please, I see the way my brother looks at you. I knew you were pregnant before you did. Lucia smiled. I also want to be the favorite aunt, which means I need to be involved now. If they are boys, I thought about Italian names, I said, to honor Dante's family. If they are girls, I want to name them after strong women I have known. What if it is one of each? Dante asked. Then we will find a compromise, just like we always do. I leaned against him, feeling his warmth and his power. I knew he would protect our family with the same fire he used to protect me. The construction crew returned from lunch. We spent the afternoon deciding on the final details for the academy. By the evening, my feet and back were aching, and Dante saw it right away. Home, he ordered. Put your feet up. I will have dinner delivered, and you will go to bed early. I am pregnant, not broken, I argued, but I still let him lead me to his car. You are both, he said gently. He opened the passenger door like he was handling something priceless. And I love you for it. That evening, in bed with Dante's hand on my stomach, I thought about the path that brought me here. It all started with a desperate crime. Violence brought me to his door. Fear and trust slowly grew into an understanding that safety can appear where you least expect it. What are you thinking about? Dante asked, his thumb drawing circles on my skin. I am thinking that I broke your window and found my home, I said quietly. That the man everyone is afraid of is the kindest person I know. You turned my darkest night into the start of everything good. Dante moved, leaning on an elbow to look at me. The city lights made his dark eyes look endless and warm. I told you that first night. You are mine, sailor. Nothing has changed. That feeling has only become stronger every day. I know. I feel it too. This, I said, pointing between us. This was not what I planned, but it was what I needed. You are what I needed. He kissed me then, a slow and perfect kiss. His hand remained on my stomach, protecting our growing children. I love you, he whispered on my lips. I love our babies. I love the life we are making. And I swear to you, Sailor Thorn, I will spend my life making sure you never regret breaking my window. I could never regret it. You saved me, Dante. In every way, someone can be saved. We saved each other, he said, pulling me in tighter. You needed someone to protect you, and I needed someone worth protecting. Someone who looked past the reputation and the danger. Someone brave enough to break my window and strong enough to take my heart. I fell asleep in his arms, feeling more safe and loved than I ever thought was possible. In the morning, I woke up and Dante was already watching me. He had an intense look that I knew meant he was planning our future. In that moment, I understood a deep truth. Love was not supposed to be simple. It was not easy or predictable. Sometimes love shows up at 3 in the morning, desperate and bleeding and crashing through glass. Sometimes it wears expensive suits and carries a weapon and runs an empire. It can demand everything you have, your trust and your courage to face your fears. But if you are brave enough to accept it, love changes everything. It turns a gym into a sanctuary, danger into safety, and fear into home. 8 months later, I stood in my academy. I was 7 months pregnant with twins who were always kicking. I was teaching self-defense to a class of 20 women. Dante watched from the back of the room. He had stopped pretending that he was not going to watch over me for the whole pregnancy. When class ended, he brought me water and a protein bar. You have to eat. The babies need it. The babies need their father to calm down, I replied. But I took the snacks. We are fine, Dante. I am fine. The doctors say I am the healthiest pregnant woman they have seen in months. That is because I make sure you get enough rest and eat well. He led me to a chair and knelt to take off my shoes. Your feet are swollen. My feet are always swollen. I am 31 weeks pregnant with twins. Everything is swollen. But I let him rub my feet. His protectiveness could be too much, but his care was real and exactly what I needed. The academy officially opens in 1 month, he said, rubbing my left foot. Are you certain you want to be there for it? The babies might arrive early. The academy will open on time, whether I am there or not. But I will be there. This is my dream, Dante. Our dream. I am not going to miss it because of a backache and swollen feet. He looked up, and the love in his eyes stole my breath. You are incredible. Most women would be at home resting, getting ready for the birth. But you are here, teaching other women how to be safe, building something important. I had the best teacher, I said softly, and cupped his face. You taught me that pain can become your purpose. You showed me that protection is the answer to violence. The worst nights of your life can build the foundation for the best future. Dante stood and pulled me into an embrace. My pregnant belly was pressed against him, our babies kicking between us. I felt his smile in my hair. I love you, he whispered. I love our family. I love this life we built from broken glass and a late-night rescue. And I promise you, sailor, our children will always know their mother is the strongest, most courageous and beautiful woman I have ever met. And their father, I said, is the man who saw a bleeding stranger and decided she was worth saving, worth keeping, and worth loving forever. We just stood there in the empty academy, holding one another. We were two people who found their home in the most unlikely way. 3 weeks after that, our twins were born. We had a son and a daughter, both of them perfect, healthy, and deeply cherished. We gave them the names Hope and Justice, because that is what we created with each other. A hope for a life that could be better, and justice for every woman who had been hurt the way I was. It all began with a shattered window, a fearsome man, and one direct question: who did that to your face? I came to realize the answer was never as important as everything that followed. The safety, the affection, the way something terrible was turned into something good. Dante Ravencroft asked who hurt my face. Then he dedicated his life to making certain nobody ever would again. That is the actual story. It is not about the breaking, but the mending. It is not about the threat, but the security. It is not about the terror, but the love that overcame it.